Okay, so today we're wriggling deep on something pretty interesting, kind of a side story in a much bigger story that everybody knows.
Yeah.
Lee Harvey Oswald's quick stop in Helsinki, Finland, just before he went into the Soviet Union.
Right.
And what's really cool about this is we have brand new documents from the National Archives.
Yeah, fresh stuff.
They were just released on March 18th, 2025.
Wow.
Document numbers are 104, 104, 10004, 1007, 100, 100, 1043. We're going to dive into these and see what they tell us about Oswald's time in Helsinki.
Right.
Was it just a layover, or was there something more to it?
That's a good question.
So let's get into it.
You know, it's always exciting when these little pieces of history come out.
Yeah.
And these documents aren't from 1959.
Right.
These are from after the assassination.
Right.
This is the intelligence community trying to understand what Oswald was doing.
Right.
So we're kind of looking at the past through their lens.
Right.
Which makes it even more interesting, I think.
Okay, so one of the documents is a memo from June 1st, 1964.
Okay.
And it talks about a discussion between someone in the SR division.
Ah, the SR division.
That's the Soviet-Russia division.
Yeah, that's the CIA guys who focused on the USSR.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And the chief of station in Helsinki.
Okay.
And the whole conversation is about Oswald's time in Finland.
Interesting. So right after the assassination, then.
Well, June 1st, 1964.
Oh, yeah, Warren Commission, right?
Yeah, the Warren Commission was going on.
Yeah, they were trying to put it all together.
Yeah, so anything they could find out about Oswald before November 1963 was important.
Right, every little detail.
Yeah, and this memo talks about a guy named Frank Freeberg.
Frank Freeberg.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was asked about Oswald's stop in Finland in October 1959.
5 years earlier.
Yeah, so this is 5 years before.
Wow.
And they weren't just relying on Freeberg's memory.
Right.
They had Oswald's letter from the Soviet cable from May 2nd, 1960.
Interesting.
So they were looking at Oswald's communication with the Soviets and trying to figure out what was going on with this trip to Helsinki.
So they're trying to connect the dots.
Yeah, exactly.
That letter probably had some clues about what he was thinking about the Soviet Union.
Right,
So maybe
yeah.
they were looking to see if there was anything earlier that showed what he was thinking or who he might have been talking to.
Okay, so Freeberg had some pretty detailed information.
Okay.
He said it takes about 25 minutes to drive from the center of Helsinki to the Soviet legation.
Okay. That's interesting. They're really getting into the details.
Yeah, and those details can be important.
Absolutely. They were trying to figure out what Oswald could have done in the time he had.
Right.
Knowing how long it takes to get places could help them figure out who he could have met and what really happened.
He also said a taxi could get you from the city center to the Soviet consulate in 5 minutes.
Wow, that's a lot faster.
Yeah, so the consulate was pretty close.
Okay.
And he said the Soviet consulate was closed on Saturdays in 1959.
So depending on when he was there.
Yeah, so if he was there on a Friday evening or Saturday morning,
Yeah.
that would change things.
Absolutely. It would mean he couldn't have had any official meetings there on Saturdays.
Right.
So it limits what he could have done.
Okay, now here's something I thought was interesting.
Okay.
Passenger lists the manifest at the U.S. consulate in Helsinki.
Right.
They were only kept for 6 months,
Oh, wow.
and then they were destroyed.
So they're gone.
Yeah, and that applied to October 1959, so by the time the Warren Commission was looking into this in 1964,
Right.
those records were gone.
So we're missing a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, we don't know who else was arriving or departing at the same time as Oswald.
So it makes it harder to put the story together.
Right, we have to rely on other sources from the Finnish side or the Soviets.
Right. Which might not be as complete.
Yeah, it just shows how hard historical research can be.
Yeah. Sometimes the records just aren't there.
Yeah, it's amazing to think how much information is lost just because of routine procedures.
It makes you think about all the stories we might never know.
Yeah.
Right.
The memo also mentions Mr. Robert Fulton.
Robert Fulton.
Yeah, he was from the CIA, and he was the U.S. consular official in Helsinki.
Okay, so the CIA was involved.
Yeah, it seems like they were right there from the beginning.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, the CIA would have people in these overseas stations.
Right, they would be the ones with the knowledge on the ground.
Right, and if Washington wanted to know something about someone traveling through...
Yeah, they would ask the local CIA guys
Right.
to find out more.
And Freeberg also said that if the State Department sent a cable inquiry,
Okay,
a copy would go to the Helsinki station,
okay.
and they would help prepare the response.
So they were all working together.
Yeah, it shows how the U.S. government was sharing information.
Yeah, they had a system for gathering intelligence.
Right,
The State Department would ask for information,
right.
and the CIA in Helsinki would help them find it.
Now, the memo also talks about the importance of a State Department cable.
Okay.
Freiberg said it would be good to send a cable to Helsinki about things that the State Department hadn't asked about yet.
So maybe the first inquiry from the State Department was too general?
Yeah.
Or maybe they missed something?
Yeah, he even suggested some changes to the cable.
So he had some ideas about what they should be looking for.
Yeah, he thought there were some specific things about Oswald's time in Helsinki that needed more attention.
Okay, interesting.
There's also a reference to another memo,
Okay,
an internal memo.
right.
It's called a memo for the record.
Okay.
It was written by Lee H. Wiggin.
Lee H. Wiggin.
Yeah, and he was from the CSR-CIR section.
CSR-CIR.
And the document number is 716838.
Okay, so this is like the paper trail.
Yeah, this is how they kept track of everything.
Right.
These memos help us understand who was involved and what information they had.
Exactly. It's like looking behind the scenes.
Yeah, and the document number is important.
Right.
Because it helps researchers find other related documents.
Yeah, it's all connected.
The memo also has a record copy stamp.
Okay.
And the date, June 1st, 1964.
Right.
And another reference number, 201-389-248.
Wow, they were really careful about keeping track of everything.
Yeah, it shows how seriously they were taking this.
Right, every little piece of paper was important.
Okay, so now let's look at the second document.
Okay.
This one is number 104 via 1003 100041.
104-1000000041.
And it has some really interesting handwritten notes on it.
Handwritten notes.
Yeah, and the first thing you see is 20th, Tuesday, October 1959.
Okay, so that's a specific date.
Yeah, that's when Oswald was in Helsinki.
Right in line with what the Warren Commission was looking at.
Exactly, and he even says it was a Tuesday.
Interesting. That could be helpful.
Yeah, it could help us connect this to other records.
Right.
And right next to the date, it says finished visa application.
Okay.
And the file number is 87654.
87654.
And then it says in big letters, Lee Harvey Oswald.
So he applied for a Finnish visa.
Yeah, this is direct evidence.
Right. It shows he was dealing with the Finnish authorities.
Right, and that file number.
Yeah.
If those records still exist,
right.
we could find out even more about him.
Exactly like what he said he was going to do.
Right.
Or who he was traveling with.
And below his name, there's an address.
An address. Okay.
It says Kulosa Renti 3A17.
Kulosa Renti 3A17.
Yeah, Kulosaari is an island in Helsinki.
Okay, so we know where he was.
Yeah, this gives us a location.
So many questions, though.
Yeah, was it a hotel? Was it someone's house? Did he stay there?
Was it just a contact address?
Yeah, researchers would definitely want to look into this.
Absolutely try to figure out what that place was.
The note says the purpose of his visit was tourist.
Tourist? Okay.
And it says he was staying until departure to USSR.
So just passing through?
Yeah, Helsinki was just a stop on the way to the Soviet Union.
But tourist is interesting.
Yeah, was he really just a tourist?
Right, but was it a cover story?
We don't know for sure.
It's the Cold War, so you never know.
The note also has Oswald's passport number.
Okay.
Z815430.
Z815430.
And it repeats the date of the visa application, October 20th, 1959.
Okay.
That passport number is another clue. It could help us track down other records.
Right, like other travel he might have done.
Yeah.
It's like a unique idea.
And then there's another note that says, arrived Helsinki 20 Oct 1959 by train from Stockholm.
By train?
Yeah, he didn't fly. He came in by train from Sweden.
Interesting.
Yeah, it makes you wonder why.
Yeah, was it cheaper? Was he trying to avoid something?
Maybe he didn't want to fly.
Maybe.
And there are more notes that say, in tourist travel order, hashtag 21340.
Didn't turn.
And departed from Moscow 21 Oct 1959 by train.
So just one night.
Yeah, he got there on the 20th and left on the 21st.
A very quick stop.
Yeah, and he used Intourist, which was the Soviet travel agency.
Right, so this wasn't just a random trip.
Yeah, it was organized.
Right, he was going through the official channels.
And one night in Helsinki really shows that it was just a stopover.
Yeah, just a necessary stop on the way to Moscow.
Okay, and then there's one more part of this note.
Okay.
It says Walcott, Helsinki.
Walcott.
And then there's some other notes that look like they're about communication.
Okay.
It says telephone 657-977 passport data plus.
So who is Walcott?
Yeah, was this someone Oswald knew in Helsinki?
Right.
The phone number and the passport data?
Yeah.
It seems like there was some communication going on.
Right, maybe they exchanged information.
Yeah, this could be a big clue.
Absolutely. We need to find out who Walcott is.
Okay, so let's sum up what we've learned.
Okay.
Lee Harvey Oswald was in Helsinki, Finland.
Right.
For one night.
October 20th and 21st, 1959.
He got there by train from Stockholm and left by train to Moscow the next day.
Right.
He said he was a tourist on his way to the USSR.
Right.
And he used the Soviet travel agency Intourist.
Okay.
We also learned about the Soviet legation and consulate in Helsinki.
Right.
And how close they were to each other.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the passenger lists from the U.S. consulate were destroyed.
Right.
So we're missing some information there.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is that handwritten note.
Right.
And the name W-Cott.
Yeah, who was Walcott?
And that phone number and the passport data.
It's a mystery.
So this quick stop in Helsinki.
Yeah.
Was it really just a quick stop?
Right.
Why did he go through Helsinki?
Was it just the easiest train route, or was there something else going on?
And he used Intourist to get into the Soviet Union.
Right.
But he was only in Helsinki for one night.
Right.
And we have this possible contact Walcott.
Yeah, it makes you think maybe there was more to it than just a layover.
So what do you think?
Well, we need to find out who Walcott is.
Yeah.
That's the first step.
Right,
Maybe there are records in Finland about Oswald's visa application.
right,
Maybe they have more details about what he was doing there.
yeah.
And did he meet anyone else while he was there?
Right?
Was he really alone?
Yeah, are there any other records out there that we haven't found yet?
It's a mystery, but these new documents,
Yeah.
they give us some new leads to follow.
Yeah, it's like a whole new chapter in the story.
Right, and it shows that even with a well-known event like this,
Yeah,
there are still things to discover.
exactly. There's always more to learn.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so fascinating. It's like a puzzle that never ends.
So thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It was a pleasure.
And keep searching for those missing pieces.
You never know what you might find.
Until next time.
See you then.